Hi everybody, this is Wendy Lokanc-Diluzio. Welcome to week 2 of Health Sciences 1010, Personal Health and Wellness. I hope that you are all settling into the semester and catching your groove. In this presentation, I'll be discussing the expectations for the PWA assignment, as well as some of the other expectations for this week. I will also provide some tips on how to stay organized when taking online classes. To follow in this presentation, I'll provide a brief overview of this week's content. I will provide some details with regards to the PWA assignment. I'll provide some tips for staying on top of online courses. And finally, I will be providing some tips for referencing APA style. Before I get into the meat of this presentation, I'd like to thank everyone who had the opportunity to introduce themselves on the online forum. It's helpful for us to know what your background is. It looks as though we have a great diversity in terms of people taking this course, in terms of the year of your program that you're in, as well as in terms of the actual program that you're taking. Many of you seem enthusiastic about taking a course that promotes personal health and wellness, which is really fantastic to hear. Currently, we have 90 students in the class. There's been movement in and out of the class all week, which is common. Everyone should be assigned to a group for discussion posts. Please let me know if you're new to this class, meaning if you just registered for the class and you have not been assigned to a group as of yet. This slide provides an overview of this week's content or activities. If you have not read Chapter 1 of the textbook, I kindly ask that you please do so. Chapter 1 is very important as it sets the stage for the entire course, so please do that if you can. This week you're required to read Chapter 2. Chapter 2 addresses the 4 dimensions of psychosocial health. It looks at the concepts of emotional and spiritual intelligence. It explains the differences between mental health and mental illness and lists some of the effects of mental illness on psychological and physical health. And it also goes on to describe major mental illnesses and factors that may lead to suicide. So an ungraded activity that I'm asking you to do is test Well's Holistic Lifestyle Questionnaire, and I provide an example on the next slide of what that entails. Completing the survey may help you with your PWA, as it will help you to identify some areas for health improvement. So I do want you to note that you do not need to send your results to us. Again, it's a self-directed activity meant for the purposes of helping you define what your PWA is going to be if you don't already have an idea of what you want it to be. Please also note that at the start of the questionnaire where it asks for gender, it only gives the option of female and male, which actually female and male really refers to sex, not gender. It does not give other options. If it was asking for gender, there should really be some non-binary options such as genderqueer, gender fluid, or others. So I apologize if this is excluding anybody taking the class from how they would identify. There will be a quiz this week as well. And just a reminder, you need to complete 8 quizzes throughout the duration of the course. There will be 15 quizzes posted. So if you cannot write the quiz this week, there will be plenty of other opportunities to write other quizzes. I will not be reopening quizzes just because it gets really confusing to myself as well as other people in the class, and it's not fair to others in the class. Another ungraded activity is evaluating sources of information, and that will just help you to identify what good sources of information are, what scholarly sources of information are, as well as what are some less reputable sources of information. This week there is a participation activity or a discussion post, and it is a marked assignment that's worth 4% of your final grade, and our TA will be marking that assignment. It's very important that you complete the post for this week, as it will help you to define your PWA that you will be implementing throughout the semester. It will also help you with collecting some of the literature you need that supports the importance of your PWA, which you will be needing for the your final paper. So really this assignment is really important in helping you for your final paper. I do want to tell you that the people from last semester that did not complete this first participation activity, they struggled with their final assignment. So once again, I know I sound like a broken record. It's really important that you participate or you complete this first discussion post. This slide provides an example of the TestWell's Holistic Lifestyle Questionnaire. On the left side of the slide, there's questions pertaining to physical activity, and on the right side, there's questions pertaining to nutrition. But the questionnaire asks questions also on self-care and safety, environmental awareness, relationships and conflict management, as well as many other topics. These next few slides address the PWA assignment. I'm spending some time discussing the assignment so that expectations are clear right from the beginning. My hope is that taking the time to discuss expectations will help you move forward easier. I also hope that it answers any questions that you may have. The PWA assignment provides an opportunity for you to implement a behavior or activity that will be aimed at improving your personal health and wellness. I feel this is a great opportunity to achieve a personal health and wellness goal. Many of us make these goals at the start of every year. We don't always follow through for a multitude of reasons. Getting marked is actually very good motivation to follow through on personal health and wellness goals. And just so you know, I have my own health and wellness goals that I'm trying to achieve, so you are not alone. It's expected that you begin implementation of the PWA at the end of this week of classes, so by January 19th. If you are not sure if your selected activity is appropriate for this assignment, please feel free to email us. You do not need to choose an activity that costs any money. In fact, I hope you won't choose an activity that costs money, or if it does cost money, that it costs a minimal amount of money. You will be required to plan, implement, and reflect on your chosen PWA, and you will tailor the PWA to meet your personal health and wellness interests, needs, and intentions. And at the end of the semester, upon completion of the PWA, you will submit a paper offering an overview of the process. Some examples of what you may choose for your personal wellness activity might include improving nutrition or healthy eating, so eating more fruits or vegetables, or let's say eliminating sugar from your diet, or drinking more water. You might choose some kind of relaxation activities, yoga, hot yoga. You might choose some kind of cardio activity, such as running, elliptical training, biking, spinning. You might choose to implement some kind of a mental health program, a sleep hygiene or sleep schedule, reducing electronic device use or social media, meditation, cooking classes. You might choose to volunteer. You might choose to address procrastination. You might choose to address time management, budget management, strength training. But what I do ask is that you please choose something you are not currently doing. So if you currently participate in yoga 2 to 3 times a week, that would not be appropriate for this assignment. You want to choose something different. Thinking ahead to your final paper for your PWA assignment will include 3 sections. There's Section A, which I discuss on this slide, Section B, Section C. I've posted 2 examples of outstanding papers so that you're going to have an idea of what is expected of you or what a final paper will look like. Section A offers an introduction, will offer an introduction to the PWA you selected, including a rationale for your choice of activity. You will be expected to describe how the activity meets your personal wellness needs and interests based on self-reflection of your current wellness status and circumstance. Section A is meant to be objective, integrating reliable peer-reviewed evidence to support the potential impacts of your PWA on your health and wellness. You will justify your choice of PWA by using literature to support your rationale. You will be expected to effectively incorporate concepts from Chapter 1 of an invitation to health, which is why I've stated that it's important to review Chapter 1 if you have not already done so. And you will incorporate the concepts from Chapter 1 to support your rationale as to why you chose your PWA. So you might choose from Chapter 1 to discuss health and wellness definitions, influences, models, and concepts. Additionally, a minimum of 2 peer-reviewed journal articles are required for this section, and sources selected should be both current and credible to the body of health and wellness literature. References are to be incorporated both in text and in the reference list as per APA guidelines. Section B will include your weekly progress log. Each week you will record your progress in the adoption of your personal wellness activity, including factors that impacted the adoption or incorporation of the PWA into your daily life. You should include examples of success, challenges that you may have encountered, any benefits that you experienced or observed. And it's important that you include a log of the time you spent engaged in the PWA during the week. The details of this log will help to inform Section C. I have to stress that there should be 10 weeks of progress logs, and you really need to be on top of recording your progress. Last semester, I did have some students that essentially submitted 1 log, and they did not get maximum marks because it was clear that they did not record what they were doing every week, or perhaps they weren't even participating in the personal wellness activity. I don't have a specific expectation of how you format your weekly progress log. Take a look at the posted papers for some ideas. One person created a table to enter their weekly logs. The other person, I believe, wrote in paragraph form. Either way is fine, as long as you address the requirements of what we're asking of you. You have the potential for full marks. Another way that you could format your log is really just doing point form, as I've provided an example in this slide. So you can have, one point where you have the date or the week. You might have then listing, another point would be listing what the activity was. Then another point would be listing the time spent doing the activity. And then having another point where you're listing additional information that includes what I've asked of you. So the successes, challenges, benefits you experienced or observed, etc. Section C of your assignment is the post-activity reflection. And this final section is an opportunity for you to critically reflect on the process and experience of implementing your personal wellness activity. It's not meant to be a superficial overview of the experience, but it should involve connections you've made to the literature cited in Section A, and the major lessons learned and intentions for the future as a result of the experience should also be articulated. Uh, a common question that I had last semester was how many pages should this final assignment be? I don't have a page limit or recommendation in mind. Um, it really will depend on what your activity is in terms of how long your paper is. So it's important that you have a title page and a reference page as per APA. And I will say that there were several people last semester who actually did not have a title page. They just submitted a paper without their name on it. So please ensure you have a title page that lists your name as well as the title of your assignment. Section A and Section C are each around 500 or more words. So I want to stress or more. It's a minimum of 500 words, double spaced. So 500 words translates to about 1.5 pages double spaced. And that's a Times New Roman font of 12-point font. So, we're again, looking at another few pages there. And then section B is the weekly log of what you completed. And so depending on how you format your log will depend on the number of pages. Some people may end up using 1 page per week, other further logs, whereas other people might be using half a page or a third of a page. Again, it depends on what you're doing for your personal wellness activity, as well as how you format your paper or you format your log. Here I provide a screenshot of the grading criteria. As you will notice, Section A of the paper is worth 25% of the paper, Section B 30%, Section C 25%, and then referencing and formatting using APA is worth 10%. So it is worth your while to understand reference and format using APA. And then 10% will be based on grammar, spelling, and editing of your paper. In these next few slides, I will discuss some tips for taking online courses. For those of you that are experienced in online courses, you may want to skip through these few slides. But for those of you that are newer or have not had the greatest success with online courses, hopefully this information will be helpful. From my experience teaching multiple online courses, many students struggle with staying on track and remembering when assignments are due. I'm going to provide some recommendations based on my experience as an educator, as well as my experience as a person that has multiple jobs and multiple commitments as well. Something that I do highly recommend is either printing out your course outline or saving it into your own personal files so that you have the course outline handy. And in the case of Health Sciences 1010 outline, I've also included a course schedule, which gives you an idea of some important dates throughout the semester. I would also recommend, if you use your electronic calendars, it's important to enter reminders of your due dates into your electronic calendars. That's what I do for my work commitments as well as my academic commitments. And something else that I do, which I find helpful, is I create a visual representation of timelines and due dates, including social events. So, not just my work commitments or academic commitments, but social events as well, so that I know what's going on in a 1 month block of time so that I can then plan ahead. Here is an example of a visual representation of timelines and due dates For example, the month of February, what I typically do is print off a calendar such as this. I then enter in important dates or commitments for the month so that I know how to organize my time for the month. In this example, I used a color coded font grouping the fictional information together. So, for example, work would be in green font. The Public Health 3000 class is in red font. The Health Sciences 1010 class is in blue font. When I create my own calendars, I use color-coded highlighters to help me delineate the type of commitment or which project a timeline or due date belongs to. So, once again, for me, this is a very effective strategy so that I have a snapshot or a view of a more than just a day at a time or 2 days at a time. I have a whole month. And actually, what I do is I don't typically just stop at the month, but what I typically do is create my monthly blocks from January up until June, because then the summer months are a little bit different and then we get into fall. But for you, I would recommend creating these monthly visuals for each semester at a time. Now, if you have a different strategy that's been working for you, then that's wonderful. But again, if let's say you've been struggling with time management and remembering due dates, then I would recommend something like this. Last semester, I did at midterm ask the students if they had some feedback for me as to how I could help them be more successful in the class. And many of the students said, please remind us when we have things due. And so I did my best, and throughout the entire semester, I always do my best. When I send my email communication for when I open each new module, I'll send a communication saying this is what to expect this week. So I will send out reminders, but I don't have the time to send 3 or 4 reminders a week saying you have a discussion post due, you have a quiz due. I really feel it's up to the student to take that initiative and figure out how to organize yourself so that you remember your due dates, or you can, have an easier time meeting your timelines. It's important to treat your online course like it's a course that you're taking in person. It's important to schedule a consistent time each week to sit down and do your readings and do the work that's required of you. So just something to keep in mind, the Moodle platform provides the ability for instructors to see the amount of time that you spend on Moodle, including if you've reviewed the required documents. It provides me with information on how many times you've logged on during the week, when the last time you logged on, as well as the documents that you've reviewed. So sometimes I've had, students, when an assignment is due, say to me, my computer crashed. I can't get my assignment into. It was almost done. And, I don't know what I'm going to do. I go into the back end of Moodle and I can see that they actually haven't logged on to the Moodle site in 1 or 2 weeks, or they haven't even opened the assignment guidelines. So I do want you to keep that in mind, that it's very big brother. I can tell the work that you've done. So it's important that you follow through with what the requirements are of the course. If you're having trouble following through with doing the work, perhaps you can pair up with a fellow classmate or enlist the help of a partner or a friend to check in as an accountability partner, just so that you're able to get done what you need to get done. By being organized, proactive, and self-aware, you can get the most from your online class, even when life outside of school becomes chaotic. And as we all know, life outside of school is chaotic, Many of you have many things on your plate. Some of you are working, and some of you are parents and have children that you're taking care of. So life is very chaotic, but it's important to try to organize yourself the best you can so that you can get the most out of your education as well. When working on your assignments, try time blocking or allotting yourself a certain amount of time for each task before moving on to the next one, and setting a timer to keep yourself accountable. This is a strategy that I use as well when I have multiple deadlines due on the same day, where I can only spend a certain amount of time on each timeline and or each deadline. And I find that it is effective because for myself, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and sometimes I spend too much time on one thing. When I have too many things due in the same day, it's very difficult to accomplish everything that I need to get done. And so using this strategy is actually very effective. It's important to check in periodically throughout the semester and look at how you're spending your time. Ask yourself, how much time am I dedicating to the course reading and assignments? Am I regularly underestimating the time it's taking me to get things done, forcing me to cram the nights before exams? A little self reflection and adjustment can go a long way. So it's important to try to be insightful and reflective in this process. Create a regular study space and stay organized. Eliminate distractions. It's important to participate so you get the most out of your classes, and ask questions. Something for myself that I found effective is when I was writing my dissertation is that um, I had a hard time doing the work in my house, because when I was in my house, I would rather clean a toilet than sit down and write my dissertation, especially if I was stuck on something. So if I wasn't effective, or if I was procrastinating in my house or distracted in my house, then I would go to Starbucks for a few hours and just have my headphones on and get the work done. I was lucky because I have a home office space, but I also have a work office space. So if I couldn't work in the house, or I didn't want to go to Starbucks, then I would drive downtown and go to my work office and try to get some stuff done as well. But the challenge with being at my work office was there was a lot of people around, and sometimes people like to chat. So I wasn't getting my writing done when I was chatting with people. So it's just important to be aware of where you're able to be most effective and most productive. I'm going to conclude this presentation by providing a little bit of information on plagiarism, as well as some writing and referencing tips. Plagiarism is taking someone else's ideas or work and trying to take credit for it as your own. Plagiarism is taken very seriously by academic institutions, and plagiarism, as you probably are well aware, it can be grounds for a zero on an assignment or in a course, or even getting kicked out of the university. So it's really important that you take the time to understand what plagiarism is and what constitutes plagiarism. There is a free tutorial on plagiarism and referencing and citing that you can take through Moodle. When writing your paper, I would recommend using Google Drive, your Google Drive or Google Docs, if you're doing a presentation using Google Slides. And that's just in case your computer does crash. There's been many times that I've had students say their computer crashed and they lost all the work that they had done. And in all honesty, that's happened to me as well. Something else you can use is Dropbox. Dropbox is a free cloud up until a certain amount of data. But for the most part, if you're writing a simple paper, Dropbox is excellent, and you can just save your work, and then not worry if your computer crashes or if your computer gets stolen or whatnot. Um, Another tip that I would say is when you're writing, especially for the courses where you're having long papers that are that you need a lot of citations, is to reference as you go so you don't lose track of the references or your citations. I would recommend as well that you do not use too many quotations. Sometimes I get a paper or I get discussion board posts where it's one long quotation from an article, or whether it's an academic article, peer reviewed, or a gray piece of literature, where the whole post by the student is in quotation marks. And it's important that you do your best to reword somebody else's word as much as you can, and then you cite them, because as somebody marking your paper or your assignment, it just shows a different level of understanding or critical thinking if you're able to reword what somebody else has to say. There's plenty of resources out there that provide tips for using APA, and on Moodle, I've actually provided links to resources for APA as well. So if you're not understanding APA, it's important that you take the time to understand how to reference and format according to APA. Because many people have difficulty referencing in APA style, I do want to provide you with a referencing quick tip. If you have and this works if you have a journal article. If you have a journal article that you want to reference at the end of your paper, what you can do is enter the title of your journal article into Google Scholar. So, for example, if your journal article was Foundational Best Practices for Online Sexuality Education, you enter it into Google Scholar, and then you click on the quotation marks, so that then your reference will come up, and I will show you that on the next slide. So this is what will pop up when you press on that quotation mark. You have the ability to cite that article in different ways, whether it's MLA, APA, Chicago, Harvard, Vancouver, and then all you will need to do is copy and paste the citation for APA that would appear in the box and put it into your paper, and that will save you a lot of time and energy. Now, what I do recommend is to read over what pops up as the reference. Sometimes this method, there will be some minor errors where they forget a period or forget to italicize the journal number, but for the most part, it's right on, and it really is a time saver. Thanks for listening to this presentation. Please feel free to email if you have any questions. Have a great week.